Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Decline Invite, the only invite worth accepting. Today's conversation is one I've been looking forward to because we're talking about something that is impacting every business right now. AI, communication, customer engagement, and what it actually looks like to build technology companies that survive long term. Joining me today is Artie Chang. Artie has spent years helping shape technology companies, building industries first, and navigating multiple generations of technology transformation across communication, customer engagement, and innovation. What I'm especially excited to dig into today is not just AI itself, but how the businesses are balancing automation, customer experience, leadership, and long-term adaptability in a world that's changing incredibly fast. So we're going to get into talking a little bit about AI and customer engagement, the future of business communication, building companies that stay relevant, leadership during major technology shifts, and what businesses are still getting wrong about AI adoption today. So Artie, welcome to the show. I'm excited to have you.
It's great to be here with you.
Appreciate it. So one of the first things we like to do is just go into a couple icebreakers. So before we dive into all those great things that I just mentioned, what is something people would probably be surprised to know about you?
Gee, well, there's probably a lot of things, but the one that comes to mind, which has had some recent changes, is that I have 10 children. So they all keep me busy. They're age ranging from about 29 to 40. And out of the 10, I just attended my seventh wedding. So there's
Wow.
7 down and 3 to go.
Wow. Yeah, no, I imagine that keeps you quite busy.
Uh,
Uh,
and
that's amazing.
they range from PhDs in neuropsychology to lawyers to high tech people to dog walkers. So they really span the gamut and keep me on my toes.
That is amazing. Yeah, that is I can't even I can't even picture it. I'm trying to remember if I even know 10 people I like to talk to. But having 10 people that you can be that proud of and that have done so much by the sounds of it already, that's amazing.
Well, now I
What a
have to
wonderful
always talk
fact.
about 17 since there are 10 plus 7 spouses. So it's 17. Thanksgiving and Christmas are madhouse for us.
I was very curious. Yeah, it must be a very large table or, or several several put together to fit all of that.
Let's just say we started around 45. So,
Wow. That is incredible. That's a fantastic segue to go into. I mean, you've been through multiple generations of technology evolution. When you look back at it now, what stands out the most?
I have been through multi-generational changes. I was here when the actual PC was invented. Windows version 1, I went through version 1, version 2, version 3, all the way now to Windows 11. I witnessed the birth of the internet, which was DARPA before it was called the internet. So I've seen a lot of changes, and to really stay relevant and across all these different changes, and to really create lasting companies, it really takes passion for what you do. And I have a lot of passion both in my personal life and my professional life, but that's what keeps it exciting. It's what drives you to be as good as you can be in whatever the current technology or the current company that you're in. But passion is a key component and characteristic that I try to maximize as much as possible in my professional life.
I love that. Somebody who's in the technology space themselves, you have to have that really to keep driving. It's changing so fast every single day, and I mean, we'll get to that next boom here in a second for sure. But did you always know that you wanted to build and work in technology companies?
I've always had a proclivity for the STEM sciences and mathematics and physics, and even from a very early age, I can remember both my parents worked. They were both professional people. My mom, early on in her career, was in teaching, and I remember one of my early projects when I think I was only 10 or 12 years old is I built a tornado machine that actually created a mini tornado in a little 3 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot box, and just was fascinated about science and how things worked and so forth. But when I started my first job at Bell Labs, which at the time was one of the preeminent research organizations really in the world, and I had the benefit and luxury of learning from real luminaries in the industry, and that's really what I think started my spark of wanting to be in technology and around technology and learning about new technologies and how to really apply it to building products.
Yeah, I've never had the luxury of being able to work in a lab myself. So to be able to take that scientific approach and roll it into IT, I mean, it's such a natural fit. It makes sense. And what a fascinating experience.
Yeah, it really,
So
it really was.
I can't imagine. So you've helped shape some of, really innovative technology solutions over the years. What initially drew you towards building, industry first solutions?
I think again it was that fascination of what's over the horizon, what's on the next horizon, and I want to differentiate though. I never really was that interested in basic research. So, at Bell Labs, I learned a lot about the two kind of segments of research. There's basic research, which is really the core of basic research is inventing things. And you really don't have any focus on building any kind of product per se. You're not focused on what customers really want. You're really focused on inventing the technology itself. And I was fascinated by that, but not super interested. I was really more drawn to the applied research side. So you had sort of basic research side at Bell Labs, and you had applied research. And applied research in its very name means taking that technology and applying it to building real products. And that's where my passion was. And part of that passion and what you need when you do applied research and you build products is you need to have very good listening skills. It sounds kind of uh, an opposite approach, but when you apply the research to building products, listening to your customers is key towards building the right products that actually solve customers' problems.
I just seen a post last night about somebody complaining about getting into like meta business or whatever it's called these days. And I chuckled because that's so much not what you just described, not listening to your customer base and making things that are usable that people want. What you just said is so natural. It makes sense to me, but I've seen a lot of things out there. So, your approach definitely is the one that I would suggest. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it just sounds counterintuitive to some people, but I coach a lot of engineers, and engineers want to build sort of the technology first and deliver the technology, and then find the problem for the technology, and that really is somewhat backwards. You need the technology for sure, and you need to have an eye towards seeing where the technology is going and the horizons of where the technology is going. But in order to actually solve customers' problems, you need to be able to listen to customers and listen to what their challenges are and be able to kind of um, bring those two aspects of the business together when building an actual product.
Yeah, that makes, I used to say, and any conversation this would come up in, that I have a rule. And if it's not usable and it's hard to use and I just don't like, it's painful to try to force myself. I'm not going to use it. Like I'm going to move on to something. I'm going to find a different way of going about it. So that's my role, even my own funds, right? Whatever I'm purchasing that I need to use for whatever I'm doing, it better be something that solves my problem and it's easy to navigate and use. And it, it honestly makes so much sense coming from like what you just said about engineering and background. Like as an IT individual, yeah, we just want to fix things. We're just on to the next, fixing the next issue that we hear that is sometimes hard to stop and yeah, absorb that feedback. And it's a great skill to pick up if you're able to pick that up and blend the two worlds together. Oh man, it's a sweet spot.
Yeah, and there's nuances I think to this conversation. There's a
Hmm.
nuance between being reactive in product design and proactive in product design. And there are times when you need both, but they're clearly two different aspects. When you're reactive to product design, you're fixing a very near-term issue or a problem with the current product, a bug with the current product. When you're proactive, you really do take a little bit more of a horizon approach to looking farther out and trying to anticipate or use some deductive reasoning skills or analytical thinking skills to see what the current problem is and then see how in the future, say 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the road, that problem will manifest itself and how the technology of the near term can be applied to solving those um, estimated problems that will be occurring over the next 5 years.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, on the topic of this, what does it actually take to create something that doesn't already exist?
I think there's a set of skills that either leaders in a company have to have or individual contributors in a company that have to have. Passion, I talked about as one. But I think from a skills point of view, having a good intuition, good deductive reasoning skills, analytical thinking skills, all those can be used to apply to your prior experience, whether it be technical experience or managerial experience, which is a building block to seeing what's coming next, what's the next wave, and is it a disruptive wave or is it a more gradual building kind of wave? And those skill sets are necessary to really help guide where the company should go. Um, yeah,
So, what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned in building rapidly evolving industries, like within them?
over the years, and I've been in technology now for many years, and been lucky to be involved with a number of companies, and I really have come away with three distinct, I call them philosophical guidelines or guideposts for me, and that has helped me instill culture in each one of my, which creates a long-term value proposition. And it starts with how you make great decisions. It's actually quite hard to make every decision a great decision. And in fact, you can make good decisions that become bad decisions. So what I've found is the way you make great decisions is you make good decisions and you refine them over time. And there's really two parts to that. The first part is not making any decision is by definition a bad decision. So sort of paralysis by analysis is a bad decision process or decision making process. But just as important, the second part is don't make a decision and then set it in stone and never change it. Because over time, if you're not listening to new inputs and adjusting that decision, again, it will probably become a bad decision. So make a good decision and refine it over time, and ultimately it becomes a great decision. So, that's one philosophy we use. The second one is microstatus, encourage microstatusing, don't micromanage. And this is where leadership, I think, great leadership starts to really differentiate itself. Micromanagement is when leaders and managers actually try to do their subordinates' job or try to make the decisions that the subordinates are really meant to make or elaborate on. Microstatusing is intense listening and being transparent both up the chain and down the chain, where you create an environment where your employees and subordinates don't feel a negative impression if they are transparent with both positive news and negative news. So if you create that environment where you're just listening and then you're encouraging and making suggestions as opposed to actually driving their work direction, you create better leaders. And then the last one, the last philosophy that I've really tried to instill is encourage passion, discourage emotion. And there's a big difference between those. Some people think those two things are the same, but they're really not the same. And I used an example of two engineers that are trying to get their solution to be accepted by the company, and there's a manager in a room, and they have a chalkboard, and the engineers are putting up their solution on the chalkboard. And when you're passionate about something, you're going to direct all that energy towards the chalkboard. So the engineers are going to be facing the chalkboard and talking about their particular solution and why their solution is the best solution. And that's a great environment to be in because they're directing all their energy towards the actual solution they're proposing in the chalkboard itself. When it becomes emotional, that's when the engineers turn at each other and they direct their comments and criticisms towards the actual other personal person. And that's when it becomes negative. So this last guideline is encourage passion, discourage emotion. And those three guideposts I've used in over time have built these sayings over time, and I instill these in all the companies that I've worked with.
Love everything that you just said. As somebody right now who is posting so much about leadership, I just posted something this morning, very much on leadership. It is so great to hear that these are not. These should be the norms. Like what you just said, that should be what you walk into in a company, and you'd be amazed at what you find in employees if these are your standards, these are your normals. And I know from my experience in leading teams that if you encourage that kind of behavior, then it takes away, like you said, the emotion. This is so gratifying to hear, real leadership still exists in a lot of the world where it seems to be lacking in a lot of the spaces these days, or the mindset is not about real people leadership. It's about, what we're about to get into here in the next segment, but we'll save that till then. So, do you think that businesses today underestimate how difficult real innovation actually is?
I don't know if I would generalize that all businesses underestimate real innovation. I think that there are companies and time frames where they may do that. Some of it may be historical, some of it may be time sequencing. For example, you find a lot of companies, they might put out some new technology and then they spend an inordinate amount of time marketing that new technology, living off of the revenue of that new technology, and it may cause them to get complacent and not continue to drive that technology. That's a characteristic that a lot of companies fall into. And to me, it gets back to this concept of what are you passionate about? And if you're passionate about driving technology, you're not going to become complacent. It's really all about, do you have the right leadership in place to drive innovation and drive passion and to keep passion as a mainstay of a characteristic of the culture, and not let complacency replace passion.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I agree with it all. It just makes so much sense to me that I wish that was the standard everywhere. Um, so AI is obviously dominating conversations right now. What are you seeing being the most meaningful impact, especially when it comes to like a customer engagement situation today?
So it's accelerating quite fast. And I think that's a good thing and a bad thing. Sort of, there are good aspects to it. The innovation is there, and the capability and potential is there. But it can also be a bad thing. You hear the negative aspects of throwing AI technology at customers too fast, and things like hallucinations start to creep in, and misdirection and poor guardrails. So I think, what we have at Pantera have adopted is a really a strategy of what we call crawl, walk, run. And it seems simple, but to really implement it is important for product development. And so, we took our time to develop our AI agent called Luna, which is our AI receptionist. And we spent a lot of time making sure we put safety guardrails and contextual analytics guardrails so that we would prevent any hallucination events. And if we have the ability in Luna to really sense sentiment, customer sentiment, and if the sentiment turns negative, we immediately redirect to a human receptionist, and that's built into the product as a default. And so we've taken that kind of crawl first and then walk and then run approach, and it is we've gotten good feedback from our customer base, which is really mid-market. Pantera really services the mid-market customer, sort of in the 50 to 2,000 employee range. And even one frustrated customer can result in meaningful revenue loss to that size of a company. So um, I think there's really great potential. I think if you take the crawl, walk, run approach, right now AI agents can do a great job at augmenting and to some degree replacing low-level, repetitive human tasks such as call routing and meeting summarization capabilities. But you're not going to replace, your whole support organization. That will happen potentially at some point in time in the next 10 years. But mid-market customers can't afford to be at the bleeding edge of AI technology.
And I swear for any of the listeners, I had no idea Ari was going to say anything that he just said because I've been almost yelling at, at this space for a while and using the terms crawl, walk, run.
Oh,
And
I
that's
never
how,
knew you used that term either. So we
no,
really have
no.
converged without planning.
I mean, especially when we're talking about AI, because I feel like a lot of the human part forgets, like they almost get saddled with AI and they forget everything, and then they're just like walking around with their new best friend AI, and they're forgetting all the other steps to it. And with a lot of the clients that I help, like especially when we're talking about why AI and do you have a governance model? Do you have a plan for security? You know, who's going to own like all of these steps? There's steps for reasons to be successful, and not to damage, like you just said, a very, very good point about reputation. And then just yesterday, I just put out something about, you know, as a human, are you looking forward to calling up somebody with a problem and going, man, I hope I get that AI bot? Or are you hoping to, you know, talk to Bob, Sally, George, Bill, you know, whoever? Like, yeah, you want that human connection still. So I'm very excited to hear that you did a lot of those steps with what you just described for your company's AI bot, and that there is a pathway, especially for a human to come in and you know, have empathy towards that customer, and hopefully settle the situation down and keep a bad situation from being a reputationally damaging situation. That's amazing to hear, honestly, and it's rare right now, and it's a good thing that all other companies can learn from, I think.
And having the benefit of seeing disruptive technologies in the past and what the prognosticators at that time said, I mean, if you really look back when the PC and the personal computer first came to fruition, there were some prognosticators that said this is going to replace engineering because the personal computer can do spreadsheets so much faster and can do so many things so much faster. And the same thing when the internet was first introduced, the prognosticators said this is going to replace all research. Like people will be able to do their own research by just exploring the internet, and so there will never be any more research jobs out there. And the same thing with AI. People are prognosticators are saying AI is going to replace the whole workforce, and you're only going to need physical labor like plumbers and electricians, and that's it. And I think much like the word processor, the word processor didn't replace the author. The word processor accelerated the author's efficiency and ability to actually get the words down. And I think AI, I truly believe, is not going to replace the workforce. It will change the workforce. And so it will, I think, take up low level, repetitive kind of tasks. But the workforce, the human workforce, will evolve to become more creative, more thoughtful kind of positions. And so there's just going to be a reorientation of the workforce.
I feel very much the same opinion, right? It's an amazing tool that I've done a lot of amazing things with, but I still strongly on the fence that the things that make companies different and give them competitive advantages over other companies are the humans. And if those competitive individuals that you hired that are amazing then work with this amazing tool and get creative with it, that's the best of both spaces instead of, you know, all the horror stories that we're seeing of companies actually trying to replace entire departments right now, and not with great results, honestly, from when you're following up with these companies that have done those things. So I
Right.
couldn't agree more. So what do you think separates organizations using AI strategically from the companies that are simply just chasing the hype of AI right now?
Well, I think the ultimate difference is their bottom line. Those companies that take AI and try to push out bleeding edge AI for technology's sake are companies that basically end up telling, they're generally huge companies, Meta, and what they tell their investors is we're investing in AI, and that really is code for we're losing money. We're not making any money, and those companies can afford to do that. But to me, that starts to fall under the concept of basic research, not applied research. And you need companies to be able to do that to drive industries forward and to have the disruptive technology filter down into applicable products. But not every company has $100 billion of reserve to actually afford to invest and apply basic research and lose money. So the predominant uh, other companies in spaces really need to focus on taking AI and doing a crawl, walk, run approach and really implement things that solve customers' real problems and things that customers are going to be really willing to pay for. Our Pantera's Luna AI receptionist is a pay for service, and we have a number of customers that absolutely love the product. So we try to infuse AI in places where we get real return on our investment, as opposed to take the concept of telling our investors we're going to lose money for the next 3 or 4 years.
Again, I'm struggling because it's like it's logic to me. Like, what a concept that makes so much sense that it's a really great strategy for a lot of companies that are not the Amazons, the Metas, OpenAI, ChatGPT, any of these companies that you're seeing and you're hearing and they're being jammed, down as the industry leaders and those kind of concepts. The rest of the world, yeah, finding an ROI value and measuring that and making sure that your every decision is like leading towards that. Most of the businesses that I'm dealing with seem to forget, business when we're talking AI. And if you strategically place it in that realm where it's like you would never do a business deal that brings you negative value if you knew that going in. So why are you just throwing it out there thinking it's going to solve the problems? You need to plan. Project planning has been around for a reason. Let's do this smart. Let's put it in place. And then, yeah, let's, put it where it makes sense that you'll get a real return on.
Right.
Uh, Amazing to hear, honestly, the smart concepts that I'm hearing, and the great things that your company is doing out there, because it is some of the smaller percentage that is out there right now. And hopefully it becomes another norm. I would love to see the space and other companies do successful by doing it right. So, how would you say that leaders that are thinking about AI augmentate, or excuse me, how should leaders think about AI augmenting people instead of replacing people?
Well, I think I've talked about that concept throughout our conversation here, but just to sort of bring it to a point, um, there is a lot of fear out there that AI will replace the human workforce. And again, I don't believe it. I don't think you believe it. I think, again, just as word processors didn't replace authors and PC computers didn't replace engineers and the internet didn't replace researchers, it's really a tool. It's a powerful tool. It's a disruptive tool. But ultimately, it's a tool. Uh, and certainly there will be some segments of the workforce that will migrate to different other segments. So again, these low-level, repetitive, task-oriented positions, I think, will be augmented or eventually be replaced by agentic AI agents. But that will allow humans to migrate to much more creative and thoughtful positions to manage these AI agentic agents, because there will be times where they won't be because of safety guardrails or contextual sentiment guardrails. They will have to have higher level human interaction and communication to ultimately solve the problem. So again, I think that the workforce is going to continue to be there. It will reorient itself slightly, but it will absolutely be there. I think that one interesting, I have one daughter who's in a high-tech company in the customer support area of the business, and that is an area that people are trying to apply agentic AI agents, and to some degree they're having success again at these lower levels. When they try to replace the whole support organization is when I think you have experience with this as well. It really becomes a problem, and she has absolutely believes that it's not going to replace the whole support organization, but it really does provide a super powerful tool. But one concept she's brought up is it's pretty thought provoking, is she's wondering what does that mean for people just coming into the space who have no experience. So just coming out of trade school or just coming out of maybe a bachelor's degree and wanting to get into that customer space, they would typically migrate into those low-level repetitive positions, but certainly in the next couple of years, she's lamenting that growth path will sort of be stunted because those low-level positions will be all replaced by agentic AI. And my response to that was that um, it will allow accelerated growth for the human workers to leapfrog into the more creative and thoughtful positions by using AI training tools to accelerate their growth. So um, I think there will be a transition period, but I do believe human workforce will simply move into those higher level creative positions using AI training tools to accelerate their leap over that low level repetitive position that they would have normally gone in for a year or two to learn the business.
I think those are all valid points. And I bet she sees all kinds of things being in the role every single day, and the good and the bad, and where to apply it and where not to apply it. Um, and her point about, yeah, the lower level roles would probably not exist. How would that work? I think we're almost there. We're definitely talking about it, right? And companies
Right.
are trying to do it. But I think you're right. I think we're caught in the transition period where we're trying to play catch up from the top down, right? So if you're going for a bachelor's degree, do these schools and these teachings have that in their lessons already? We're probably in that weird space where the current crop coming up is probably going to get hit with struggling a little bit. But yeah, in a few years, it'll become the norm. We'll adapt, we'll use that tool to accelerate, and we no longer go there. We go here, and it just becomes a new norm, and we move forward with it. I truly do believe that. Like you said, you've seen a lot of evolutions in technology. Social media was another huge evolution in, the tech space. We survived that. We're still going for better or worse, right? And AI, I think, is going to be a similar thing where we're going to find creative ways. It's going to be in the humans' hands to find the creative ways for good and evil. I think.
Another great example of that is, with Claude and with OpenAI code, the kind of low level coder, the kind of initial coder is going to be either augmented or potentially replaced. But what I found and what we're seeing is that allows for the human to become the expert Claude custom prompt creator or the manager of the how do you direct Claude and direct Open Chat GPT to create. So creating those custom prompts, curating those custom prompts is going to become really the realm of the human to do it, but the actual coding part will be done by Claude and AI. So this is again where the low level job will transform itself, and humans will move from being low level coders to being custom Claude prompters and curators of nuanced prompts to create the right code.
Yeah, I very much can see that. I see people right now that are in my network that I have a connection with, they're kind of really doing that, right? They're making their own variations of whatever, and they're consistently giving it the prompts, and it's the natural movement. Nobody asked for it, but we identified that that was going to be something it was going to need. We're no longer now doing, like to your point, all those manual, repetitive things that, quite honestly, humans shouldn't want to do anyways. It's boring, and like satisfaction is you doing the same thing over and over again. But now you're over here doing kind of something similar, but you're being a bit more creative with it because you're helping it by going, hey, I noticed it does this every time, but what if I trained it to do this and I gave it this script? And yeah, you're going to see ROI.
Or it got 90%, but the 10% it can't figure out really. And if I just change the prompting, and over time, I've gotten much more efficient at knowing what it can do and what I can do, and and it used to take me 3 hours to change that 10% of the prompt to customize the prompt to get that 10% extra output. Now it takes me 3 minutes because I really understand it. And that's where human creativity and human thoughtfulness, I think, will continue to dominate and be a value add.
I love it. And I couldn't say it any better. And I'm glad that other people are saying it. So with that, let's go ahead and hear from our sponsors.
Hello, everyone. Ryan here from Stellarhorn. Let me take a quick second to talk to you about something I see all the time. Most businesses don't actually have a technology problem, they have a leadership problem. They've got systems, tools, even teams in place, but no clear direction, no strategy, and no one connecting technology to the business. That's exactly why I built Stellarhorn Group. I help organizations through fractional CIO leadership, advisory, and project-based work, bringing executive-level technology leadership without the full-time CIO cost. Whether it's strategy, cybersecurity, AI governance, or leading critical initiatives, it's about helping you make better decisions, reduce risk, and actually move forward with confidence. If that sounds like something your organization is dealing with, please reach out. Let's have a conversation. Stellarhorn Group, rare leadership, real results. Technology leadership without the full-time CIO cost.
And now that we're back, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the future of business communication. So communication platforms and customer engagement have evolved dramatically over the years. Where do you see things kind of heading next?
Again, I use this analogy of the word processor, which improved the efficiency of authors but didn't replace authors. And I think, the whole core concept of business communications is to interconnect people, people to people, and that's never going to change. And so AI, infusing communications with AI is going to make human to human communication more effective, more efficient. And that's what you're really seeing with our product, Pantera's product, Streams.ai. We bring together a number of AI tools which help make the human to human communication more efficient, more effective, but we don't replace, our goal is not to replace that human to human interaction. So whether it's um, uh, doing AI transcription of a call with a customer, or a video conferencing transcription and summary, automated summary and creation of tasks, that's again making the communication more effective, more efficient, but it's not, the AI is not creating the content. The AI is curating the content. The human content is always there. It's always human generative. And AI is there to make that interaction more efficient and more effective. And so that's what we focus in at Pantera. And I think that's really where the future of AI and business communications are gonna merge.
And I absolutely love hearing that because it's kind of amazing. I'm even able, like, capably able to get through podcasts as somebody with ADHD. I normally focus on the conversation itself. So when you're talking about all the other tools that it can do for me and not replace what I do best, like human connection and having the conversation, it's capturing all those things that I might have missed or having a hard time to remember. And that's how it's enhancing both sets of the space now, where I can get the full 360 view of everything, come out of that more prepared, better, leading into the next convo. And I love the fact that your company space is learning to do what I think most companies should do, which is human and AI, find ways to make them both better by utilizing them both, but not trying to necessarily replace all the humans. I think that's amazing, and it's a
Right.
rarity. I'm just going to keep saying it. Um, so, are businesses making communication more effective right now, or do you feel it's looking more fragmented?
Well, I think that you're seeing a consolidation of what we call separate service companies, and they're consolidating to more of an all-in-one approach. And that's really a maturity of market space. That really happens in virtually every market space. If you look at, personal productivity applications first started out, you had Lotus for spreadsheets, and you had PowerPoint or you had WordPerfect for word processing, and you had um, uh, separate charting program, and then along came Microsoft Office, which consolidated all of those applications into an all-in-one application. And I think you're seeing that now happen in the communication space. You had hosted VoIP for voice, PBX replacement, and you had Zoom originally for video conferencing, and you had Slack or Teams for the team collaboration and messaging aspect. And now with products like Pantera Streams.ai, really all of those business channels get consolidated into an all-in-one product. And then when you infuse a common AI approach, like our Luna is now the same Luna that takes video conferencing meeting summarization is the same Luna that does call transcription through our PBX, which is the same Luna that's in our team messaging room for custom prompting of summarization of team collaboration. So it allows for consistency of an AI approach, consistency of security, consistency of management. In fact, Streams.ai is one of the first companies that has an AI admin agent. And so now you can very easily and simply talk to the AI agent to do a lot of the repetitive tasks like deploy a remote location or add 10 users to the system, or configure these remote IP phones. It can be done with, one conversation with our Luna admin agent. So that's where I think the future is for business communications is AI powered or assisted all-in-one business communication solutions such as Streams.ai.
Yeah, and I think that's amazing. Those are great proficiency gains right there that are repetitive tasks that happen in every organization. People are always hiring new individuals and there's things to set up. And that is a great example to speed that up, get it done at a quality level that is consistent every single time. And then the human can come in and spot check these things if they need to at that point. But most of the work's been done at that point, and it's been done, maybe in an automated workflow. I'm assuming at that point, it's just a great example of where you can take the technology, I think.
Right, absolutely.
So, what advice would you give leaders that are trying to future-proof their organizations?
I think it comes back, and I hate to be redundant, it comes back to those three key philosophies. If you want a long-term company, continuously make great decisions. Don't just make good decisions, continuously make great decisions. Continuously encourage transparency up and down, micro status, don't micromanage. And of course, uh, create a company culture of passion and not emotion. And I think, if you apply those three key philosophies, you can not only create a long-term viable company, but you can create a culture that is super positive for your employees, because having employees that are happy and passionate and striving to not only make their own personal goals achievable, but to the collective, the company goals, that's really what building companies is all about.
Yeah. Again, I have a hard time of saying anything that's meaningfully, an addition, because it's just logic to me. It just makes sense, and I totally agree. With that, though, what is the biggest lesson that technology has taught you over the course of your career?
It's taught me so many lessons, but I think one of them is, again, it goes back to my early times at Bell Labs. I was not that interested in basic research. I was interested in applied research. And when you build companies, you have to build it on applied research. You have to build it on solving customer problems. So, putting in bleeding edge technology into a customer base without really solving the customer's problem, just introducing new technology, is not going to bode well for building a long-term company. You really have to listen to the customer and use your analytical thinking skills and your deductive reasoning skills and your inference skills to understand what is the challenge for that customer and how to build a product that will meet that challenge and produce um, successes for your end customers. And when you can do that in a passionate way, you can create great companies.
I would love to be at those companies, even help those companies, get there, because you are absolutely right. That would be amazing for an employee to be there and experience day in, day out. And it is a space that is achievable. And that's the other thing I would, I guess, add to that, to echo. It is so achievable. The business should definitely listen to that advice. So,
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I haven't spoken a lot about, but one of the leadership qualities to creating a long-term company is respect. That and respect is something that is earned, not mandated. And when you can uh, have the respect of your employees, your subordinates, your peers, you can create great companies. And the converse is really true. When you don't have the respect of your employees, your subordinates, and your peers, that's when passion becomes emotion, and it really can be a destructive force within a company.
yeah, I've screamed on this quite a few times. I call them title holders versus leaders. And at the end of the day, a title doesn't mean anything. Yeah, you're the one barking the orders, and maybe people have to do what you say, but to actually come away with respect, and if you have the respect, everything you just said is absolutely true. And those people are going to be more creative. They're going to feel at ease. They're going to try to use their minds, for good, and you're going to get great results eventually out of that, versus the individuals that, I guess, you're demanding the respect. I guess that would be the alternative, but
It just doesn't work.
it doesn't. And I would wish individuals would realize that sooner, or maybe leave the ego at the door. Like you said, your example earlier through two engineers, just leave that at bay, because you're going to have a better result if you don't do that. So, what excites you about the future?
Oh, just everything. I know that's cliche, but having been through, again, as I said, multiple disruptive technologies, um, just anticipating the next disruptive technology. And I've been in the business long enough to know that with every wave of new technology, there is the opportunity to take that technology, that basic technology and basic research, and apply it. So listening to the customer and taking that technology and applying it, and making and creating products that customers love and that customers feel solves their challenges and solves their problem is what I get up every morning. I have a personal philosophy, and that is I've really never had an alarm clock ever for my whole career. I just get up, even if I have 5 o'clock meeting, 4 o'clock meeting. I'm so excited. I'm prepping myself within my own mind and consciousness, and I just have this internal alarm clock that gets me up to get me ready and excited for that day. And I gauge my passion and my drive and commitment for each position and each company that I work with by not having that alarm clock and always making it on time. So, that's something that I personally am have an ability to do. I'm not saying that that's something that everyone can do, but for me, it's my personal gauge of how committed I am with a company is that I don't need an alarm clock.
And I absolutely love that because people that are passionate, as we're going back to there, and people who believe in what they're doing, they're excited to do. I mean, you're going to produce, way better than if you didn't. You're just doing it to get a paycheck or
Right.
showing up. And I've always led with that mantra, in organizations, so the teams I've led as well, that IT is not a silo. It is a partner to the business. Like your job is to go partner with that business, find out as much as you can, and we succeed as a team. We're not IT and marketing and sales and whatever, line that you want to put. We are one team and we succeed with that. And I love that that is the mentality that you bring for yourself every day, because that is bound to trickle down to others, and it really changes the wiring. And I do think it helps. It helps people change their wiring. It helps them come with a different level every single day. And again, I understand we're all humans, good days and bad days, right? But if we're leaving with a consistent culture every single day, what a place! What a place that I think anybody would be crazy not to want to work in at the end of the day.
And I
So,
truly believe that everyone has a passion for something. And what you need to do in your life as your life evolves is to find it. Don't get stuck in a place where you're not passionate, because that's really just dead years or dead time. And I encourage and coach a lot of engineers and management people. And the first thing I'll ask about is, are you really passionate about what you're doing? Because if you're not, just doing it for a paycheck is just not going to cut it for you or the company.
right. Yeah, I agree. And I just want to give credit where it's due, because the fact that you asked that question is another rarity. I talk to a lot of leaders, the ones that maybe aren't necessarily where we're at of taking an investment into others, right? Like I want to find out as soon as I can, kind of like what your passion is, to your point, and help you get that, regardless of where it is. It might not be here, and we
Right.
might be working together right now, but if you do a great job with me right now, I'm going to help you get to where you want to be, wherever that might be. Even as crazy as it sounds, you might want the job that I have, and I hope that you achieve it one day. Because if I did a great job mentoring you and helping you and providing those opportunities, company will find me another spot, or maybe it's time to go and it's time for me to evolve and try another passion of mine somewhere. Like
All
these
right.
things happen, and I'm happy to help those people get there. And a leader, like when you run into a leader like that, I find that most people are almost blinded because it's not the norm, and it's a shame, because there are people like you out there that are asking the questions, right? What's your drive? What's your passion? And then, awesome. How can I help you get that? Or, if it's not a fit or whatever, well, let me help you find where that fit is. And that's an okay thing. That it honestly is, right? Like we go through and we figure it out, and the faster that we can do that is also time and money for the company. And the shorter cycle for that, everybody wins still at the end of the day.
All right, everybody wins.
Everybody wins. So, Artie, this has been an awesome conversation. I could keep going on. I won't for everybody's sake, especially yours. But I think one of the biggest takeaways for me is that, well, while technology keeps evolving, the businesses that succeed long term are usually the ones that stay adaptable and without losing sight of the people, the communication, and the operational clarity. So, with that said, where can people find you, follow your work, and learn more about what you're doing?
So you can come to our website, www.panteranetworks.com, and that's where you can learn all about streams.ai and how it's really creating a generational shift in business communications going forward with its AI native infused capabilities and all-in-one approach to business communications.
Love it. And I'll make sure to put that link in the actual episode when it goes live here.
Great.
So, thanks again, Artie. It's been a pleasure having you join me today. And I really appreciate the conversation. It's always fantastic to learn about the awesome things people are doing at different businesses, but also finding the amazing leaders along the way. So I
All
really
right.
appreciate you taking the time. And with that, the meeting has been adjourned. And I'll
All
see
right.
you guys all again on the next one.
Thank you so much, Ryan.
Absolutely. Take care, everybody.